The opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
And hello and good evening, everyone, and welcome to Scarefest Radio. Original broadcast date is June 21st, 2019. Happy summer. That's probably about the best I can say. Happy summer solstice, and I hope you haven't floated away. Tonight, we've got Leo Doyle coming on with us. He's going to be talking about the future of electronic ghost hunting. And we do have a top-notch, A-rated horror fan thing. Yes, we have a celebrity announcement. We'll do that at the 30-minute mark. And one more thing I want to throw out there. I'm going to give him an extra plug tonight. The Beacon of Light, Akashic Awareness, our sponsor from Elizabethtown, is having their Beacon of Light Festival tomorrow. And so if you would go to beaconoflightfestival.com to find out more information. But if you're in the Elizabethtown area and pull your rowboat out of the garage, they're talking about like another inch or two of rain tonight. God, this sucks. But anyway, if you can make it there tomorrow, please go support Akashic Awareness. Mark and Shelley, go in, tell them that Scarefest Radio sent you, and so that way they'll keep paying their bill. So, let's just get right on into it. Leo, I want to welcome you to the show, and I want to say, now this is what a nerd I am about this kind of stuff. I was excited about tonight's show because you are speaking on a topic that, despite my limited knowledge of electronics when it gets right down to it, I have harped on this since I became a ghost hunter. And you know, and it just, so kudos. And now one more thing before we get into the interview. Last week I teased it incorrectly and forgot what the initials stood for anyway. Everyone, we're not talking about instrumental transdimensional communication. No, we're not. We're talking about the nitty-gritty stuff. The dirt under your fingernails data. The frequencies and what we're measuring. And so that's where I see the future there, Leo. I see the future there. Now we talked a little bit before the show. You have not had your paranormal experience. What led you to this field of endeavor lacking that epiphany, if you will?
Well, a few things. First of all, my mother, father, and brother have all seen ghosts. I lived in a so-called haunted house, and they all saw the ghosts. I never saw that. A lot of strange things have happened in my past that make me question a lot of things. So I'm not a non-believer, but I'm a skeptic and with an open mind. And a friend of mine actually lives in a haunted jail, and he's the one that turned me on to Scarefest, as a matter of fact. And he also owns a haunted asylum. So I've been around it. I've heard the stories. I've heard people tell their stories, and I'm fascinated by it. And the reason why I got involved to the extent I did was that I saw a lot of tools out there that I thought needed improvement. And being an electrical engineer for my whole life, I thought I could do better, if you will.
Now, one thing that now you point out in the little teaser, if you will, for your seminar coming up, is that we've actually entered a really good time technologically for improving the field of ghost hunting. When I got into it, we were stuck with consumer grade technology that was, whatever we could pull off the shelf and figure out how to apply it to what we were doing. That's what we had. Now, with the exception of Radio Shack going out of business, you point out, 3D printers are now, where the consumer can afford them. So somebody with just a little bit of technical know-how can now actually do something to advance the field.
Absolutely. Like what I'm looking at is the circuitry. I've had the circuitry for forever. I can design circuits. I can detect magnetism. I can detect light, sound levels, all that kind of stuff. But once you do that, what do you put it in to make it look halfway decent, to make it viable, if you will? And the 3D printers have changed all that. I've actually built up 10 different 3D printers, and they each have their own little different purposes and such. But now I can go ahead and imagine something in my mind, design, build the circuit, because I have a lot of different parts here, design the circuits, make a case for it, and then try it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, well, I've just wasted some plastic.
Now, by your own definition, what do you consider working in the ghost hunting field?
Okay, what I look for is something that that works. It has to be scientific. It has to be repeatable. It has to be like for instance, one unit I came up with is a radar unit. I've not seen anybody else have that. And this will go through walls. It'll go through glass. It'll go through doors. And what you can do is have somebody on the other side of the wall walk past. And if you can detect them, that's what I say is viable and works. Now, if it goes off at other times, well, is that a false indication or is that a ghost? That's not for me to declare. That's for somebody else to to go up.
Right.
Because again, I'm a skeptic, as I say.
That is the trap that. See, I like that attitude. You just want to know that it measures something and measures it accurately. The trap that ghost hunters tend to get into, and yes, some of you are already offended, paranormal researchers. The trap that some paranormal researchers get into is that they go into a location and they invest their time. They invest their money ahead of time, but and sometimes if it's a pay-per-play place, but then they invest all this time in it, and they want the data. They want they want it to be a ghost so badly that they lose sight of. They lose their grasp on skepticism, I guess, is one way to dumb it down. But they lose their sense of what else could this be.
And that very thing right there, like of course, the EMF sensors and stuff like that, trying to go ahead and look at voltages and see what's out there. As you know, if you're walking along and there's a fluorescent light, the thing will light up like crazy because fluorescent lights just have a lot of energy in that spectrum. One thing I'm going to come up with, well, I already have, is an affordable oscilloscope. If you know what an oscilloscope is, okay. With an oscilloscope, if you put the right circuitry around it and such, you can actually see a graphical representation of whatever that was that triggered the EMF sensor. So if something's setting it off, you can look at it. And if it happens to be 60 cycles, then that means it's just electricity going through the walls, just electricity in a house or whatever. But if it's something else, well, then again, it needs further investigation to figure out what it is. But if you can see it graphically, that'll give you a lot more information than just a light lighting up or a needle registering.
Right.
That's, to my mind.
That was always my complaint about EMF detectors.
Mm-hmm.
Once I actually read the manual that came with them, everyone, all of your consumer grade EMF meters are tuned to wall socket current, 55 is it megahertz? What the hell? It's
55,000.
50
50 or 60 hertz.
Okay, 50 or 60 hertz.
Yeah.
See, I told you. Once I have to start spouting numbers, I'm an idiot. Okay, so they're tuned to that.
Right.
And I've tried to explain to people, now, if you get a measurement on your typical EMF meter, that doesn't necessarily mean that it was a wall socket, but at the same time, okay, because now, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is your typical EMF meter, because they're not filtered in any way, if it registers 3 blinky lights at the wall socket level, then actually it might be good news for you, because down at 20 hertz, a really powerful spike at 20 hertz would still trigger it at the meter, but it's not an accurate measure of what the actual spike was.
Well, to my mind, a lot of meters, if you take 2 meters and put them side by side, there might be differences between the two. To my mind, you know what the baseline is of your own equipment. In other words, you walk around, you know what the meters normally read at. And so if you go ahead and use your meter, if it does something abnormal, then you investigate that. It does something that it normally doesn't do, then you have something significant, and you have to try to figure out what that is.
I got into a big discussion one time with somebody about, they said before they ever went on an investigation, they literally sent their meters off to the factory or whoever and had them calibrated so that they'd be accurate. And I said, well, first of all, that doesn't mean diddly squat, because you get an accurate reading on a wall socket. It still doesn't get down into the frequency range. But the other thing is, they're shipping them back to you. That's probably what knocked them, if they're not calibrated correctly, that's probably what knocked them out of calibration anyway, was hauling them around. That being said, are there any meters out there that are widely available? I'll easily available, but I realize you're not going to walk in just any place and get them, that actually measure down in those other ranges, the 20 hertz, the 10 hertz on down in the lower end of the EM spectrum.
There are, but they're kind of unusual. What you can do, there's a thing called, if you're familiar with it, a spectrum analyzer. What those do, at not the real low frequencies, it's hard to get one and it's very expensive at those ranges, but recently there's a new development where if you want to listen to a bunch of frequencies at one time, you can do it, a spectrum analyzer basically, and you can look across a bunch of different frequencies, and then you can look for different spikes, and you see it graphically across the screen. And if you see a spike, then what you can do with these spectrum analyzers is zero in on that, and then just listen to that one thing and see if you can hear something, or if you have a direction finding antenna, go toward it and try to see where it's coming from. And those have become very affordable now. It used to be like a $12,000 instrument, and now you can get a simplified version of it for like, well under $100, maybe even under $50. Yeah. And I think a lot of these things people just aren't aware that exist. And that's one of the reasons why I want to go to Scarefest. I want to find out what people are looking for, tell them what's available, and then I'll know which way I should direct my efforts.
Okay, now this is it's not the skeptical side of me, it's the cynical side of me. I don't think what we're talking about right now, Leo, is not sexy. It doesn't.
Well, in other words, engineer, it would be.
I don't think very many. Now there are some serious paranormal researchers. Don't get me wrong, but your typical paranormal group that did like I did, watched too much TV and said, "Hey, I'm going to go ghost hunting." I don't think they want to go for the stuff that at the end of the night they're going to show the client your oscilloscope. That's so anyway. We're going to take our first commercial break, everybody. We'll be right back with more Scarefest Radio and our guest Leo Doyle talking inside baseball stuff about ghost hunting. Have you checked out the Mama Ruby's family of metaphysical and spiritual shows? The Mystical Fair in Lexington, Kentucky, Lexington's only monthly psychic and holistic healing arts fair. The Inner Light Festivals in Louisville in June and Lexington in November. And watch for Mama Ruby's Expo coming in 2020. Plus, Mama Ruby's Meta Lecture Series featuring interesting guests speaking on fascinating subjects. Start your journey now at mamarubies.com for more information. And welcome back, everybody, to Scarefest Radio. The next Mystical Fair, July 13th and 14th, Lexington, Kentucky, Whippleport. Look it up, mysticalfairlex.com. Okay, now we're back to talking ghost hunting, and you can just tell I eat this stuff up. Now we talked a little bit before the show, which I normally I don't prep my guests, but we did have a nice little conversation. Now one area, this is the other end of the EM spectrum from where we've been concentrating, but have you done any work in up towards the gamma spectrum as far as measuring basically a cheap and easy way not to pack a Geiger counter around? Have you given that any thought in your research?
No, I actually own Geiger counters, oddly enough, but no, I don't have anything in that spectrum. But it's not hard to make a Geiger counter, a simplistic one, and so. But I never thought about using something like that. In my readings, it didn't seem like a lot of people use those, and so I didn't know if that.
Well, they don't, and the reason is though, and this was pointed out on the TV show Ghost Hunters. Their tech guy handed them a small Geiger counter, and then Steve turns around and goes, "What are we looking for? A radioactive ghost?" And okay, here's the dumbed down theory behind it. Some of us in the paranormal field believe that whatever is on the other side of the veil is very, very different energetically from what's on this side of the veil. Now, I'm going to compare it to matter, antimatter, but I don't actually think that's the thing. But I do. Several things that we observe in the field could be explained by opposite energies annihilating. Battery drain. In other words, of the whole EMP effect could explain some things that we encounter. And it's occurred to a few of us that if there is an energetic annihilation happening, then it very well, in a measurable event, it might actually manifest as a gamma burst. So that's where that idea came from. And I've told people, if you could get hold of the little badges like X-ray technicians wear, those people walking around the hospital, just something like that, just to know if it happened, if you're exposed or not. It's a field that I would like to see explored. It might not go anywhere. Lord knows in this field plenty of places don't go anywhere. But now, as this is a good question, and the way they ask it, I get to frame it. It's all about me. Now I realize you're just worried about measuring the data. Now, as a skeptic, an open-minded skeptic, but a skeptic nonetheless, do you have any ideas about, short of it being Grandma's ghost, what we could be measuring when we're in the field? When we get those anomalous spikes in the EMF range, when we get EVPs or whatever, do you, realizing not having your own paranormal epiphany, do you have any, we'll call them pet theories or pet hypotheses about what's actually happening out there?
No, there's just a lot of things that I can't explain. It's like UFOs, right? And that's a whole nother topic. But like,
Barely.
there's still some things. Yeah, there's still some things that even after you've gone ahead and debunked all of them, there's still a few that you can't debunk. And what about those? And I say I've had some things happen to me. I've had like items move around on a shelf and unexplainable. Well, different things. I could go into that for hours about the weird things. And people say, why don't you believe? Well, I think extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence, and I haven't gotten to that point yet. But you're talking about, by the way, some other things like the other realm being some other form of energy. Now, one thing I thought about that, a couple of things I want to bring up that I've been thinking about, new items that haven't been done yet. Well, what about EVPs are always in the audio spectrum? Well, you can easily make something and convert other frequencies into our hearing range. Our hearing range is between yeah.
High five over the radio. I've been talking about that for 3 years.
Well, and the one I'm looking at, because normal hearing, the best case is 20 to 20,000 hertz. What about 20,000 to 40,000? What about what dogs hear? Because every now and then you see a dog do something strange and look at something, and you didn't hear anything, and there's nothing apparently there. Well, are they hearing something that we don't? Apparently they are. And so if you can convert that to our hearing range, I think that would be really interesting. And again, I have some plans. I'm getting the parts. I get a lot of my parts from China, and I'm ready to go ahead and make those to go ahead and try them out myself, because I want to hear that. There's another thing is, someone came to me at a ghost convention, and they said, well, I said, if you can tell me what to pick up, I can go ahead and build a sensor for it. And they said, well, when you get goosebumps on your arm, it's like, well, how do you measure a goosebump, right? What I thought was, what about galvanic skin response? When you go ahead and, like, the same thing as a lie detector, okay, the same type of thing. The hands and the feet are the most sensitive, and if you lie, or if you sense something, or if you feel something like an emotion or something like that, it will go ahead and reflect, and it'll change the skin resistance, and you can measure that. Now, I think it'd be interesting for someone that goes and hunts ghosts out in the field, when all of a sudden something's happening, to look at the instruments, and if they see it move, then do they see something, manifest itself? I think that would be fascinating.
You used a word I was not familiar with. Galvanic.
Galvanic skin response. It's part of a lie detector. It's a part that goes on.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, I like expanding my vocabulary. But I do like that idea. Now, one thing in measuring this stuff. I know. No, before I see how excited I get. Okay. My working, and I don't like using the word theory, because theory is something that I could test, and I'm too stupid to test this. But some people, I believe that when we get a true EVP, when it's an actual EVP, I believe that what we're actually recording, to put it down to my 5th grade reading level, an EM burst, an EMF signature, will have a waveform, just like a audio response. And I believe that when we get what we actually, without expanding the definition, a true electromagnetic sound is actually energy that manifests in a waveform that, for whatever reason, our recording stuff can pick up. Our human ear can't. So, in other words, I don't think I don't think it's outside of our hearing range. I think it is actually something that is, our electronics are uniquely suited to record. And actually, I think that's the how the Ovilus. Actually, people always say, well, how in the world can can an Ovilus work? That's how it works. He went through and he put, and he's never confirmed this, because then people will start making them. But I believe that he actually went through, found a list of words, took their waveform, and when it registers an EM spike close to that, then that's the word you get over the little creepy electronic voice. So yeah, that was just me kind of putting my 10 cents worth in on how I believe, how closely related energy readings are to the serious audio work that we do. Is there anything about that this doesn't sound like it could work?
No, not really. One thing that we were looking at was there's actually in the English speech and I'm going to get technical here on you. I know you hate that, but there's 64 phonemes in the English language,
Right.
which means utterances or sound elements. Now, if you go ahead and hook that up to like a white noise generator or something else, it will. And again, these 64 different elements. I wonder if that would bring something about, or if you fed noise from the background from site like the EVP. Just the background noise there, if you put that through something with the different levels of the EVPs or whatever, because you have background noise there, and you fed it through a generator that produced these different phonemes, would you get some intelligence, anything? I don't know.
See, that's something that also the Ovilus does. It has a phonetic mode.
Okay.
I never liked using the phonetic mode because, first of all, when you get too many syllables in there, you start hearing what you want to hear. Just humans, we suck at this kind of stuff. But the other thing is, I just felt like in the chaos of the background EM spectrum, stuff that just goes on around us all the time, cell phones, CB radios, and everything, I felt like if you gave the box too many choices of what it was going to tell you, that you'd get a lot of false positives. And something you said about intelligence, let me tell you, I've sat in on enough ghost box sessions and listened to people have intelligent conversations with the radio, and I'm sitting there going, that's gibberish. That's an AM radio jockey telling you what time it is. So, in other words, I don't trust the human condition. I don't like to broaden things out too much. Now,
another thing I was.
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I've got a question in the chat room when you get done.
Okay. I was thinking about another type of thing too, whereby we have our sensors. Some sensors you want stationary, other ones you walk around with. Now, the stationary ones, I thought it'd be interesting to go ahead, and this hasn't been done yet, but wouldn't it be fascinating to go ahead and have like temperature sensors, barometers or whatever, go ahead and hooked up to a main receiver so you can see if temperatures in some room are changing, instead of actually going to that room and maybe something is right ahead of you or whatever. So each room have its own sensor and detect something. Let me show you one just for grins and giggles. I don't know if this will pick up or not, but if you can see this little device right here, this thing is a complete computer along with a temperature sensor and a humidity sensor, all in one unit, and it's wireless. It's Wi-Fi. All you do is hook up a 9-volt battery to it, and this can be anywhere in the world, and you can go ahead and see what the temperature is, and you can get like minute by minute reports of temperatures and barometric pressures and such. Oh, I'm sorry, this one does humidity and temperature. But there's other barometric type things, and these sensors are very inexpensive, and they're very prevalent, but they just haven't been used yet in the ghost field. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to Scarefest. I want to find out what people are looking for, and if you know what's available, then you can know what you want to get.
We're getting ready to take our commercial break. I do want to point out now, Brad and Barry Kling, Ghost Lab, they actually did some with data. God knows a word for it. Anyway, but in other words, they actually had remote sensors that they would put around a building. I actually heard about it even before them. Passed to Kentucky, and I cannot remember the gentleman's name. He tripped over it. He had kind of a vague idea of, wanting to be able to do what you just described. And he found a refrigeration company that was upgrading all their equipment. Data loggers. That's what I was trying to think of. And he bought just like a case of data loggers. Now, of course, he didn't have the in other words, in his case, he didn't have real-time information. He had to go back, and process each one individually based on what was going on. But now, Brad and Barry Kling, I do have to give them credit for that. they did actually play with that, and I still think that was one of the best ghost hunting shows that has been on TV, because amongst all of the hype and the, oh my God, it's a ghost, they had some serious science trying to be done behind the scenes. Everybody, we'll be right back with more Scarefest Radio. Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems. Spirit Mechanics specializes in aura cleansing, stone attunement, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your individual spiritual path and needs. Find them every month at Lexington, Kentucky's Mystical Fair, mysticalfairlex.com, or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics, that's MECHANIX. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being. Everyone is talking about CBD oil. Most of us know that CBD is a cannabis compound that has significant medical benefits, but does not make people high. Its benefits include pain relief, anti-seizure properties, anxiety relief, fights cancer, reduces the risk of diabetes, and it is even used as a sleep aid. Blue Leaf Naturals CBD and hemp products are full-spectrum hemp extract oils. They use only hemp grown in Kentucky, supporting Kentucky farmers and businesses and helping you and your family stay healthy and well. Blue Leaf Naturals, created with care from seed to shelf. Visit their website at blueleafnaturals.com. Blue Leaf Naturals, a Kentucky proud company. And don't forget, everybody, go to blueleafnaturals.com, place your order, use checkout code SFFREE, Scarefest free, SFFREE, get free shipping on your CBD oil order. And they've got the new CBD oil that doesn't show up on drug tests. You shouldn't have to worry about that, but it's a thing. It's an actual thing. Time for the announcement, everybody. Now, let's tease this a little bit. You might remember her as Officer Sue Perlman on Night Patrol. Okay, we're talking about Linda Blair, people. Linda Blair. The Exorcist. The Exorcist movie. Linda Blair, brought to you by Linda Blair's World Heart Foundation. Now, if you want to know more about that, I just had the link here. There it is. Linda Blair WorldHeart.org. What it is, she has founded this. She's got this foundation to save, rehabilitate, rehome, and mostly protect the various terrier breeds that are lumped into the pit bull category. So that is that's something she's deeply involved in, and so the Linda Blair's World Heart Foundation. Look it up online. But Linda Blair from The Exorcist fame is coming to Scarefest 12. We've got Linda Blair. So there, and you know what? Her IMDb, she's done a buttload of television work. I did not realize how busy this woman has stayed since The Exorcist. I remember when she was young and did Exorcist and the Portrait of a Teenage Alcoholic, that kind of stuff. I read the book, never saw the movie. But anyway, been in a lot of stuff. You know who she is. I shouldn't have. Savage Streets, Hell Night. I shouldn't have to explain this to you people. Linda Blair. So there's your announcement for the night. Back to our guest and talking our inside baseball stuff. Now, ghost hunting. A couple questions from the chat room. We want to get into. Do you have? Okay. Now, we're going to frame this differently because we're talking solutions tonight, not just... but someone in the chat room said there's no scientific explanation, but there's actually probably no hard proof that it ever happens anyway. But battery drain, something I mentioned earlier. My idea is that when a paranormal event occurs, in other words, when that energy over there crosses into our plane of existence, somehow it creates an annihilation effect that creates a very, very small, localized burst that, just like a nuclear bomb. And it kills electronics that are turned on. That's why the batteries in your pocket are all... I've had people tell me they went dead. I've never had it happen to me. I have had cameras drain, stuff like that. Is that something that you've given any thought to? What can we measure to figure out that particular part of ghost hunting?
Boy, I know people that have been hit by ball lightning that they can't wear watches and the watches go dead. So there's a lot of phenomena like that that are affected by different things. I don't have an explanation for that whatsoever. One thing you can do, again, back to this foolish little circuit, I mean, that anyone can go ahead and buy, but this thing also has a voltage monitoring element too. So if you wanted to, during your investigations, it can also be, again, storing away information about it, about the voltages. So if you can see the time element, where it was, what the temperatures were doing, maybe have cameras and see what the drains are on the different batteries. But I don't have an explanation for that at all. I've heard that by many investigators, but I don't have an electronics definition.
Honestly,
of why that happens.
As much as I've been in the field over the years, I think it's happened to me maybe once, maybe twice, but and neither time could I swear to it because I didn't actually look at the I'm not one of those guys that, well, this battery was fully charged when I walked in this room. I have no clue. I plugged it in that day and, shit happens. But it is something that gets reported often enough but I do think, now, first of all, the reason I framed it like that, in the chat room is because there's always a scientific explanation for everything. We just don't know it yet. So, FYI. Now, the other one is more, in the auditory range. I want to throw this out to you. First of all, have you done any work with Ghostbox, with the scanning radio? Have you done anything with scanning radio frequencies?
The spirit boxes, yeah. I'm familiar with it, but no, I haven't. I've actually modified some radios to work with it and such, but no, not per se. I was not getting the results I thought I should out of the thing, and all it was picking up elements. But that's what it is, right? You're trying to ask it a question and have it come up with something intelligent answer. So I've put my efforts to other areas, but I have built a couple of circuits in that realm, and I've not gotten any good results out of it myself.
Now, we'll tell you, in the chat room, Tim Woolworth, look him up. Paranormal Study is his website. He's the only person that has given me a viable explanation of how a ghost box could and should work. Everybody else is just flying by the seat of their pants. But he has given me, someone gave me an explanation that I'm not so skeptical about it. So, look him up. The other part of the question was, now, you talk about on, one thing I don't like on your EMF sessions, we'll just go with the good old-fashioned sit around in a circle and ask boring questions all night. Some people have experimented with white noise during that. I never liked using white noise for an EMF session because, to me, white noise is a contaminant. And so basically that meant that to get my information, to get my data, I was actually introducing an outside contaminant into the auditory spectrum. Now, that being said, I do see the point where, well, maybe they need the sounds and they can manipulate it. Have you done any work in that realm with white noise and the EVPs? What have I been saying all this time? EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon.
No, I was thinking about going that realm, like either white noise or pink noise. There's different types of noise. One thing that's intrigued me is the old TV sets, not the new digital ones, but the old TV sets. If you tune them to a frequency where there is nothing out there, and if you just kind of look at the static, I wonder if you can get some meaning out of that. I've been trying to think of all different, different ways of doing things.
Have you ever seen that really cool experiment where you take now it has to be an analog camera and an analog TV, but you take an analog video camera and you point it at the screen on a dead station, which I guess are all dead now if you have an old TV sitting around, and you point it at that TV and then you watch the video. I have seen some pretty neat results from that experiment.
Yeah, I haven't seen that at all, but yeah, that is interesting. And you can see Tesla actually did an experiment, right? When he came up with, and I believe Tesla invented, and the patents prove that out, that he invented radio transmissions. He used to listen to wave fronts and the storms and such. Excuse me. He used to listen to the different storms and get meaning, if you will, out of the static that was coming across to his receivers and such. And I wonder if there's something there. I've been building. I actually have some weather radios and such that I manufacture. But if you just listen to the so-called noise, you get some pretty interesting things during storms. You get different sounds and such. And I'm wondering, too, there's different types of modes of operation. Typically, when we listen to AM radio and stuff like that, AM radio is amplitude modulation, then there's FM frequency modulation. But there's also other modes. And I think it would be interesting to listen to like single sideband or other types of modes on the normal frequency bands to see if there's other intelligence out there, or if we hear or can detect other types of sounds out there that might be meaningful. Again, I'm out there on a limb, but I'm looking at different things and trying to find different ways of looking at things.
Hey, that's what the field needs. Everybody, we're going to go ahead and take our final commercial break of the hour. We'll be right back with more Scarefest Radio.
Coyote Chris Sutton.
Shamanism.
Spiritual advisement.
Paranormal investigations.
Inspirational presentations.
Bringing light to the darkest places for over 20 years. Go to coyotechris.com to learn more. And don't forget our newest sponsor, Akashic Awareness. Akashic Awareness is a metaphysical healing and learning center unlike any other in Kentucky. Large selection of crystals, gems, and minerals greet you the minute you walk in the door, right about the time that it says Raven will wag his tail, but I keep wanting to say Shelly because I just think it's be so funny. The official tail wagger of I am such a misogynist. From that point forward, the journey is yours, and believe me, they got a lot of stuff, and they're terrible, terrible salesmen. They'll just tell you what they got, and then leave it up to you whether or not. I'm like, you need to push people, make them stand under the pyramid, but no. It's all up to you. You do what you're comfortable with, and they have a lot going on there, including tomorrow, the Beacon of Light Festival, Saturday, June 22nd, 2019. It's an event of no limitations, no judgment, nothing but good people and good vibes. I'm going to try to be there tomorrow. I've had found out I'm going to have a farm emergency in the morning. I have to take something to the vet. But if I can get away and the weather is reasonable, I'm going to try to make it there tomorrow afternoon to see what all is going on down to Akashic Awareness. AkashicAwareness.com. Okay, back to our final segment with our guest Leo Doyle, and this is all this is fascinating stuff to me because this is what I see the field needing, is to be able to record and come up with reproducible data that we can show to people and say, even if it's not a ghost, there is obviously a phenomenon going on that is outside of the human experience by and large. I get really, as I like to say in my Kentucky verbiage, it makes my ass itch. All of these new things that are so concentrated on introducing like white noise into the EVP experience, and the ghost box and all this, were I feel so much of that is taking the easy way out because it's not boring. You actually have something to listen to. You get to talk to a ghost, allegedly. But at the same time, I'm not comfortable with what the data that it produces because it's up to so much interpretation.
Yeah.
So, what would you like, beyond even what you're doing, what would you like to see people do better based on your experience?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of things I've seen out there and worked with that they're noisy. The equipment's noisy, and you get a lot of false positive indications from. And unfortunately, from some of the false positive indications, I think you get some people saying, like, there's a sign. If it's reproducible, that's one thing. I'd like to see more scientific things out there, people documenting things. I'd like to see, like, if you have a bunch of different units integrated together and talking at the same time, wouldn't it be great to have like a camera, as well as like if you wanted to have like an electromagnetic generator, because some people say that if you generate a certain frequency, I'm sorry, generate signals into it, that the ghosts or spirits can manifest themselves. Well, if that happens, then why not try different frequencies? If they're just trying 60 hertz right now, is what I've seen people do, and a
Right.
transformer will do that. I'd like to see several different sensors and time logged linked together. So when you see something on the EVP, when you see something on the camera, wouldn't it be great to go ahead and have them time synchronized? What are all the other sensors doing at the same exact time? That's what I want to see. And that would be more scientific. Then you look at correlation. You look at, are other people seeing the same things with the same sensors? Is the temperature dropping? Is the static sensors going off? Are the same things happening when you see the same events happening in different places? I'd like to see more studies with multiple sensors, time linked together, locked together, so you can investigate it by time, saying like at 8:05 and 15 seconds, this happened. Okay, is anything else seeing that?
I absolutely agree with you. Now, there's so many things running through my mind. I absolutely agree with that point. Okay, I'll just jump to the other question I had. Of your experience looking at what people do, what do you absolutely see? Is there anything or any device or both that you just, when you see people do it, it just absolutely makes you cringe? What is the least scientific thing you see people do? I'll frame it that way.
I'm not going to pick on any manufacturers, first of all, but I think when you're talking about the EMF type stuff, when you see that, and that's one of the more commonly used instruments because they're reasonably priced, they're very prevalent out there. Well, I think there almost needs to be some training involved with that. In other words, if you're real close to a fluorescent light, that's what you're seeing 99 times out of 100, right? I'd like to see people that, and that's what makes me cringe, people seeing false indications that they think are real. And you can explain it away by anyone that knows about electronics can say like, well, certain devices are very noisy and like fluorescent lights, and certain LED lights. Well, cell phones also, yeah. And what gets me is some people, if you go ahead and have something that transmits a signal, and then you have something that, like for instance, the EM, what do they call it, generators, and you go ahead and have something that measures EMF, well, you're going to get something because you're generating the signal yourself. So I think there needs to be some
hope
sort of training.
nobody is dumb enough to get excited about their EMF generator generating EMF. See, now, EM pumps and EM generators, I never got excited about those because, first of all, okay, just like going back to the whole battery discussion, the common wisdom in the field are that ghosts steal the energy from our batteries to manifest. First, we were telling ghost stories before AA batteries were even thought about. So I just don't buy that ghosts need our batteries. And then some people have had interesting results using electromagnetic pumps. In other words, something happened that they would designate as paranormal during the use of a EM pump. But my thing is, if you build a fire in the parking lot at Walmart, you're likely to draw a crowd, but it doesn't mean they're cold. You know, it doesn't mean they need the fire. An EM pump might actually disturb the veil in such a way that they go, what the hell are you doing? And they come over to check you out. But I see, once again, it's something being introduced into it. Now, if you want to introduce something, people, into your investigations, now here's my wish list. I want to see more stuff done with sound frequency, but not as white noise so much, but just the tonal frequencies. I forget what they're called. But they're basically tones that some Buddhist monks came up with that, you know, lead you to spiritual enlightenment. But they are real tones that are measurable. And I'd like to see somebody just pack a big ass stereo into a big old haunted location and just put on these tones one at a time and see if it changes the environment as you've described measuring. In other words, I think part of what we need to do is not only measure, but we need to figure out ways to reach through the veil, if you will, and get their attention where they will interact with us in such a way that we can measure it. Doesn't that sound like fun?
It does, and you do have different types of generators now that or frequency generators, right? Mm-hmm. And if you go, well, certain frequency generators, like they will do sine wave, square wave, triangular waves, different wave formats. And if you go with something that's noisy, like for instance a square wave, it will generate the I'm getting technical on you. I'm sorry.
No. So far, hey, I'm with you so far.
Okay. Well, a square wave will be the odd harmonic, whatever the fundamental is, whatever you tune the frequency meter to. And if indeed, if something responds to an EM field, okay, then at 60 hertz, who's to say that maybe 300 hertz isn't more appropriate? And I've done some reading, and you have certain things called like God frequencies, and different people think different frequencies. Well, we all know people respond differently, right? For instance, concerts. If you have a real low frequency under the hearing range, under 20 hertz, what happens is you'll see people go ahead and get upset stomachs, really upset stomachs at concerts when they have feedback. They've checked for that now, but this is older concerts. Very high frequencies above our hearing range, you'll get severe headaches. Now, we don't hear the frequencies, but it has an effect on us. And so why wouldn't it have an effect on other things also? So I think you have to go ahead and if you do an EM pump, you would have to try different frequencies to see what's appropriate. And you can start out at different frequencies and go through the whole thing and do it over a series of many hours. You don't have to be there. You can just go ahead and set up your equipment and walk away from it.
Yeah, but you just took the sexy out of it, Leo. You got to do it over hours. See, well, that's our problem, Leo. We're just not, it won't play on TV.
Instant gratification.
No, you're absolutely right. Leo, we're at the top of the hour. It's been a fascinating discussion, and everybody, now Mr. Leo Doyle will be speaking at the Scarefest. He has a seminar, The Future of Electronic Ghost Hunting. Did you see the little blurb I put out for you? It was The Future of Electronic Ghost Hunting, and Are Electronic Ghosts Even Real? I was bullshitting. But everybody, this has been Scarefest Radio. Don't forget, Linda Blair is coming to the Scarefest. Brought to you by the Linda Blair World Heart Foundation. We'll be back next week with more Scarefest Radio.